All right, and we're rolling. How are you doing today, Sayward?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I went for a 7 mile run, like I was just telling you
hmm
before, like literally right before the podcast. I came back, showered, got ready real quick, and I feel relaxed. And I don't know, like it's been a while since I've ran that much,
hmm
so I feel just calm. I feel like everything's just.
Okay, I feel like this whole topic is gonna make you not calm, so I can change that real fast. But at least you got a little bit
Well,
in
let's
your
let's
day.
ease into it a little
Okay,
bit.
yeah, that
Yeah.
works with me.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself first.
Mhm.
You went to college around here, right?
I actually went to West Virginia University.
Okay.
I'm from Wisconsin, and I originally went there for forensic science.
Mm.
But then I decided that I just really liked all of my chemistry classes, and then at one point I was like, what do I do with chemistry? Like, it seems like an easy answer, but I was like, I want to be passionate about what I'm doing. I know I like chemistry, but how do I apply that? And so I ended up taking an environmental chemistry class. And I also did my senior's capstone on DDT, which I know is like very well known. Um,
I'm sorry. You're gonna have to explain that.
okay.
This is a very dumb podcast. You're talking to an idiot.
Okay, so DDT was popular in the 70s. It was used um in the Vietnam War or like World War II, and basically it's a pesticide.
Mm.
Um
Like Agent Orange.
yes. And so obviously we know the fallout of that, and it's like really harmful to the human body. So that has a carbon chlorine bond, and PFAS has a carbon fluorine bond. So it's very similar. And so that's kind of where I got my start in this whole general like persistent organic pollutants. And then I graduated in May 2020.
What a time to
from
graduate.
my house.
What was that like? Were you happy about that, or did you
No.
want to walk?
Yeah, I basically spent my senior year, the end of my senior year in my parents' basement.
Oh my gosh.
It was not good. Didn't enjoy it, especially because I missed out on like saying goodbye. I went on spring break, and then they were like, "Don't come back."
Oh man.
So yeah, no, I did not, wouldn't recommend. And I got to walk a year later. So last May now I got to walk. So that was fun, but it wasn't with everyone that I got to actually like spend my time in college with. So it was definitely weird and hard. And obviously living with your parents as a 21-year-old and spending your 22nd birthday alone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was a lot, but about like 4 or 5 months after I found my job that I have here now in Holt, in PFAS with Fibertec Environmental, and I've been there ever since, and I really enjoy it.
What do you do there?
So a lot. We prep, the whole company does all kinds of various environmental testing. We have a wet chem department, semi-volatiles, which is the department that I'm in, and a volatiles department. And so volatiles tests for like air pollutants. Semis does things that are sometimes air, sometimes water, soil, all sorts of things. We do the same thing for PFAS. We're not into air yet, but we test in soil and water. And basically we have to,
Are you testing like local soil and water?
it's mostly around Michigan.
Okay.
But yeah, most of our clients are around this area just because like there's chain labs that people will like ship like hundreds of miles to get their stuff tested there.
Wow.
But they're also going to be cheaper. But you know, a lot of our clients say that they like us because you know it's more direct one-on-one, and we work with the clients in order to.
So clients, are they like homeowners? Are they people who own businesses? What are they?
It's a little of everything. We work with like various townships. So like, we get like contracts with various
cities,
city or like this township.
Okay.
We also have a lot of landfills on our clientele list, and then we also have like environmental groups that basically are like the middlemen between someone who doesn't know what they're doing. They find these people and they're like, please help me. And they're like, okay, we use Fibertec. We're going to send these samples to them. And then when we get the results, we'll explain it to you. And so I would say that that's like the big, that's the majority of what we do. There's also individual people that do that. So there's like someone who had a house fire and they wanted to know, oh, like, can you test our surfaces for PFAS because it's in firefighting foam? And we're like, well, we don't do that, but maybe we can figure it out for you. Whereas a lot of...
Are there places that do that?
Probably not. There's probably other places that would say as well, like, we don't do that, but we could maybe figure it out. They do surface testing for other contaminants. Like even Fibertec does, but we haven't done it for PFAS. And so we were kind of like, well, we're not sure how exactly we would go about this, but something we could definitely, work on for you. And that's something that these big chain labs, they're just going to say, no, we don't do that. Sorry, find someone else.
Wow.
But yeah.
So you've become pretty passionate about the environment, I'm sure, since you started working this job.
I mean, I always have been, but definitely learning more about PFAS knowing all of the ins and outs about it has definitely led me to care a lot.
This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth. What kind of things do you see that you don't like? Obviously contaminants, people dumping stuff in all around on the earth.
The slowness of legislation is definitely something that I wish.
What kind of legislation would you like to see passed?
I think more preventative rather than regulatory. And so we have the U.S. government has banned the production of 2 of the compounds, but there's up to 6,000 variations, and they're not regulating them until after they come out onto the market and have become a problem. It's like, just we know that it's probably an issue, so just say you can't make them.
What are they using them for?
Oh, literally every single thing. And so this
everything.
Everything.
Like what?
Makeup. It's in your food wrappers, it's your clothing, furniture, paint, pans, it's in your water and your soil.
What chemicals are these?
So it is per and polyfluorinated substances. Per means many and yes. Or per is like completely full of, and poly is many. Fluorinated obviously has a fluorine atom on a carbon chain. And so when you see those little squiggles of like on the little diagrams, that's your carbon chain. And on every single one of them, they don't have hydrogens, they only have fluorines. But if you were to take away one fluorine and add in a hydrogen, that's a brand new compound. And that's an unregulated compound. So it's doing the exact same thing, but you can call it a different name.
Wow.
And so like, let's just add one more carbon. Let's just add one more carbon. And so there's chains, it ranges from 2 to 14-ish carbons, and like change the angle of a different one.
And there's no way to make like that illegal.
It's happening. It's just a really slow process.
Yeah. Is there a way to make things like makeup, clothing, all that jazz without that?
So the usage is for basically anything that is water resistant, stain resistant, fire resistant. That is all PFAS. And it is it's cheap to make, and there's things that you could replace it with, but they're not going to work as well.
Like what?
I'm not totally sure of, but I mean, trying to think of like anything that was before this has become really popular.
Yeah.
Was there anything like fire, water, stain resistant before like the 50s? Probably.
I'm sure there was. Yeah.
There's probably some way that you could come up with something that would work similarly, but not as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is.
Fair enough. That's a fair enough answer.
Yeah. But yep. So Teflon was the main start of PFAS, and so when you go out and you buy pots and pans and it says no PFOA, no PFOS, that's because of all of this, and like Teflon being, they're like, well, it's totally fine and safe as long as you don't overheat it and you don't scratch it.
So there's really no way to avoid it.
No, there's not.
Like, I mean, you're obviously kind of against it, but there's no way you can actively avoid it.
Not
it's
anymore.
in your everyday life.
Not anymore, no. And even if you as a consumer were to actively like try really hard, like, oh, I'm not going to purchase anything.
You're going to live off the grid.
It's even like if these manufacturers aren't disposing of their waste properly, like DuPont did in between the 70s and the 90s, it ends up getting into the groundwater. And then you can use activated carbon in order to kind of at least sequester PFAS out of your water. But now what do you do with that activated carbon?
Very interesting.
They are known as forever chemicals. They are never going away.
There's no way to dig it out of the soil and replace it with fresh, clean soil.
I don't know how much fresh, clean soil there is. 3M.
Are you saying we've just ruined this earth?
Yeah. Oh, I told you this is not going to be a lighthearted podcast. 3M, another chemical company, tried doing a study, and they were looking for a control group of blood that doesn't have any PFAS in it. And the only blood they could find on the planet was archived blood from before the Korean War.
Wow.
Like they were testing infants and people in like remote parts of Asia and Africa. No.
Wow.
So it's everywhere. It's in our rainwater. It's in like remote areas. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's really messed up. So that's why I'm like, I want more action. Like they've banned the production of 2 of the 6,000 compounds.
Wow.
So
what could be done? I mean, what could possibly be done? I mean, everything's made with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally in everything, like you just said. So what could be done?
I don't have that answer. All I know at this point is basically to contact your like representatives and get them to, I guess in the ideal world, they would ban any perfluorinated compounds.
But they would have to replace it with something, right?
Probably. Yeah. And it would end up being like really not detrimental to our way of life, but like think of your life without like stain-free couches or like,
I don't know if people would like that.
They wouldn't. Like it's not gonna, you know, you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons. Oh, I'll probably get cancer from sitting on this couch, but it won't get stained.
Is that true? You can get cancer from sitting on a couch?
It's an exaggeration.
Yeah.
But the chance is greater than 0.
Yeah.
And also it's not just the couch, it's everything. So it bioaccumulates. We can't it doesn't break down. We can't process it in our bodies. So you sit on a couch once, okay, yeah, you're probably fine. You sit on a couch 1,000,000 times, okay, that's
if you sit on the couch or sleep on the couch all day long, your chances are higher.
And you're drinking water and eating food and wearing clothes on that couch. So that's where it's all coming from, is that it's...
This is off subject, but it's kind of funny to me when when you hear people who like smoke and they're like, well, my grandpa smoked for 60 years and never got lung cancer. Like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work like that.
No, definitely not. And also the fact that like some of these have really low levels. The line workers at DuPont had so much cancer, and so like all the pregnant women were giving birth to babies with birth defects, and they basically they knew that they weren't supposed to be doing it. They hid it from the EPA.
Wow.
In order to keep making it, because they were making so much money.
Yeah.
Teflon profits were about $1 billion every year for that company. In the end, they settled their class action lawsuit with $671 million.
Wow.
So like nothing.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's insane.
For all these people's lives and livelihoods. And, you know, this was happening in rural West Virginia, which is another reason why I am definitely passionate about it, is knowing all of the craziness that's happened in West Virginia and the injustices that kind of happen just because it's a very poor area.
Especially with like the coal mines too, right? The coal mines, and then that's when the drug epidemic hit, and
it's everything.
They've been hit pretty hard.
And so it's just one more thing, and I'm like, you are taking advantage of these people, and it obviously they knew exactly what they were doing. And so the movie Dark Waters, it came out in 2019. It has Mark Ruffalo starring in it as the environmental lawyer that takes on this case. He's kind of just like appeasing this farmer that has come to him. And this farmer's like, all of my cows are dying. They have massive tumors on them. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. And he kind of starts to he's like, I'm going to look into it just to be nice. And he's like, wait a second. This is like really messed up. They are like, this is all just regular landfill stuff, quote unquote, but they have 55-gallon steel drums. Why do they need these? And they're like, oh, just, for stuff. Don't question it. And so the more he looks into it, the more he finds all of this craziness. And I definitely recommend it to anyone who has any sort of interest in this. It definitely explains the beginning to kind of where we are now, really well.
I think a lot of it is going on still, right?
Oh, absolutely.
With these big corporations. I want to pull this up real quick. You might know who I'm talking about. He's an environmental lawyer, and he is going. He has these suits against these oil companies. I can't remember his name though. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I wish I could. I have him on Instagram. You can go ahead and talk about something if you want.
No, you're fine. 3M was the original maker of these compounds, and
This is 3M, like the company where they have like stickers and stuff where you can hang things. Is that the same company that we're talking about?
Probably.
Yeah, like
I
a
mean, it's
3M
like,
hook type of thing.
I
Is it
don't,
like literally 3M?
yeah,
Yeah,
like that's 3M. The 3M. They were the first to work on it, and they ended up they stopped because they were like, everyone is dying on our line and getting cancer. And they told DuPont under no circumstances should this go into the waterways. And yeah, spoiler alert, they do. They put it into the waterways. So that definitely.
So he's an American attorney. His name is Stephen Donizer.
I've never heard of him before.
No. So Stephen Donizer is an American attorney known for his legal battles with Chevron, particularly the Lago Agrio oil field case, in which he represented over 30,000 farmers and indigenous Ecuadorians in a class action lawsuit against Chevron related to environmental damage and health effects caused by oil drilling.
That seems like it would be kind of the same thing, like the
Yeah.
same general idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was actually just put in jail.
What?
Yeah. Hold on, let me see if I can find. In September of 2021, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights claimed that the pre-trial detention imposed on Donizer was illegal and called for his release at having spent 45 days in prison and a combined total of 993 days under house arrest. Donizer was finally released on April 25th, 2022. Let me see why he was put in prison. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This is the kind of stuff and obviously PFAS is like a huge issue, but all sorts of environmental issues are.
Yeah, I just feel this. I feel like this goes along the same
Definitely.
lines. Okay.
It's just so scary to like realize how much like these people know that they're harming.
Yeah, they know they're harming, and then because they have so much money, they can literally shut you up if you decide to speak out against it.
Yeah. And so
it's insane.
I really obviously don't like that.
No, and you shouldn't. Nobody should.
Nobody should.
But the thing is, like, we don't think about it. We don't think about these things because it makes our life easier, for one. And then for two, when things like this happen, like overseas or in a different country, it doesn't affect us because we're getting our oil.
Yeah,
so that's all that matters.
I want oil prices, or like I want gas prices to be lower. So whatever they have to do.
Yeah, whatever it takes.
Oh man, I just really don't like cleaning pans. Like that just really sucks. And so now, fine, the people who make it get cancer, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So attorneys for environmental lawyer Stephen Donizer said Thursday that he is serving the remainder of his 6-month sentence for contempt of court at home under a pandemic-era early release program. Donizer tweeted Thursday afternoon, Danbury Prison officials released me this morning to serve the rest of my sentence 136 days at home. Donizer's legal team had requested his release under the CARES Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, said Martin Garbus, one of his lawyers. The Federal Bureau of Prisons did not immediately. Donizer began serving his sentence at the Danbury Federal Prison on October 27th. A prison staffer contacted by phone could not confirm his release. The prison's website says it's operating under the strictest level of COVID modifications, including masking, screening, and social distancing. Geez, that sucks. You're in prison and you still got to follow all those things. Donizer, who was disbarred in New York last year, was found guilty of criminal contempt in July, including for failing to turn over his computer and other electronic devices in connection with his long-running legal battle with Chevron Corp or over oil pollution in Ecuador. That's right, I remember. So, Chevron hired their own lawyers to fight. I mean, obviously they hired their own lawyers, but I'm sorry. I think like the court system like had ties to them, to Chevron somehow, and so like it was obviously in their favor.
Yeah.
And yeah, he ended up getting contempt of court and went to prison. Actually, he was under house arrest and then went to prison.
Yeah, I was like, definitely had that thought there for a second. I was like, I wonder like how true of a charge that is, or if it was just some loophole that they could pull in order to like not have him be speaking out against them.
Yeah.
So, it's like it's hard to know when it's like in our own backyard.
Yeah.
Like that, it's definitely easier. It's like, well, of course they're doing it in like Venezuela or Ecuador.
Yeah.
But they would never happen here.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it did.
It did. It did. And they cover it up every time.
Yeah. And I think it's getting better now that it's out there. But then it's also kind of like, well, what else are they pretending like?
See, my thing is, though, you say it's getting better. I work for GM, and, our facility that we work at, they call it an all-green facility. So, like, whatever that means. But they're still doing the same thing they've always done as far as building cars. I mean, so what's made it better? I mean, they're obviously not dumping oils and all that stuff into the ground purposefully, but I'm sure that stuff still seeps through, right?
It's entirely possible. Yeah, I don't know enough about the making cars process.
No, but I'm talking about just in anything in general. I'm talking about like just any manufacturing, any company that makes things.
I mean, better is a loose term because if you think of where we started, where they were just dumping it wherever,
yeah,
and like polluting people's like homes and not telling anyone about it, it's pretty easy to be better than that.
That's true. That is true.
There's some legislation that's being currently worked on in Congress that would require manufacturers to list out any perfluoral compounds that they have used and disposed of since 2011. And so at least like being able to hold them accountable, I think that seems huge to me. And I think that's like anything that has a lot of fluorines. It's not just like these couple of compounds. And the EPA is, in the next couple of years, is running a study that actually Fibertec is hopefully going to be a part of, where they are testing all sorts of different sites that would deliver drinking water to the general public. So every large stream, most medium streams, and then like townships can apply to say like, okay, our medium stream isn't like required, but we want it to be tested. And that data will go and be a part of the new regulations. So we're going to be, currently they monitor, or the EPA monitors 18 compounds in drinking water, and they regulate 11. They regulate 7. But this new stuff, so like we're going to be testing or monitoring for 29 compounds. And so basically that data is going to be, let the EPA people like, okay, do we need to start regulating all 29? Do we need to regulate 20 of these 29? How big of an issue is it?
How do you fix that once water's been contaminated?
So there's some, you can get it, like absorb it out of the water using like granulated activated carbon. That being said, eventually it will get to full, and then you have all of this contaminated activated carbon that could go into a hazardous waste landfill. Again, it's still existing. It's not gone anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't really destroy it. They are also trying to kind of find, like, are there microbes that can help get rid of it? A lot of them will decompose into the same, like, 10-ish compounds. So like all 60,000 will eventually like break down into these 10. And so that is a method that is definitely gaining traction in order to like be able to monitor for all of them, and basically say, well, because we broke it down like just in our lab, we monitored or like we tested for these 10, and now we know how much there originally was in, but we don't know exactly which compounds. It's just like that's the total amount of fluorines. So it's definitely hard.
Are there some compounds that are stronger than others or more damaging than others?
Definitely.
But there's no way to know which ones.
So in general, the longer the chain and the more fluorines that are on it, the more damaging it is. They have come up with a new, totally safe one that has been like the latest thing. Basically, they were told you're not allowed to make these anymore, and they're like, okay, fine. We're just gonna make it slightly different.
Just angle it a little bit.
Yeah. And so in theory, it's better because it's shorter and it has bonds within it that are easier to break. It's not just like this giant chain of like really strong bonds. They like separate them up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's still not great, but it's better.
Yeah.
And that's been like the latest thing. It's called the Gen X compounds.
Okay.
And so there's also slight variations of that one. That being, I think most independent scientists go, it's still probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
But we test for it, and there's almost never any hits for it. Like, we almost never see it. We see a lot of other things, but but I'll also say most drinking water is fine most of the time.
I don't like the way you said that.
They're pretty low levels, and a lot of the times I don't want to like name any names of cities, but basically we haven't tested Flint's, but I'm sure that we probably would find it in there. But a lot of them that are known sites of like they have issues with their drinking water for other reasons is also they have PFAS in them. So luckily most of those the people that live in those townships are already drinking bottled water. So it's kind of like, okay, well,
how good is that for you though, drinking bottled water? Because I mean, plastics have contaminants in it.
I'm sure it has.
I'm drinking bottled water right now, but
yeah. I'm sure it has a lot of various pollutants in it as well.
So there's really no good way to really avoid it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a depressing podcast.
Well, yeah. So I don't know. That's basically my life. Is I think about this a lot, and I think about how screwed we are.
How screwed do you think we are? I mean, is there a way to turn this around? What could be done? I mean, obviously, I would assume that the turn of like the Industrial Revolution is probably what caused a lot of this, right?
Yeah, I think personally, I think that we're screwed in way more ways than just PFAS.
Yeah.
So I guess when you think of all of the various pollutants that are out there.
At this point, what could be done? I mean, because we would almost have to scale things back, right?
We would have to
on a massive scale. Yeah.
I don't think that's a realistic option. So, yeah, it just kind of is like, if you're going to make PFAS compounds, make them like this new Gen X that break down more easily, and are less likely to cause cancers.
Is that difficult to do? To make a compound like that? Like the Gen X?
I don't know. I feel like it probably is.
Who makes these things?
Mostly 3M and DuPont.
Okay.
They also supply like standards for like laboratories in order to test against, because, you know, we have to have something to say like, we know this is so much, so how much is this sample? And I like that, because then it's like, okay, if you're going to at least put it on the market, at least let us, you know, test it and make it available for the public to kind of keep an eye on you.
There's not many people keeping an eye on them though, right?
No, not really. I mean, think about like how popular is environmental science.
It should be a lot more popular.
It should be a lot more popular.
Yeah.
But it's not. And I think it's a lot more glamorous to say like, ooh, I made this fancy new compound that it's water resistant, fire resistant, stain resistant. Look at how awesome it is. We can use this for anything. We can use this for everything.
Yeah.
That's so much more money than, obviously, that's why they were, you know, went on for decades while they knew, they're like, there's some downsides, but whereas environmental is just, it's like, okay, you know, they're just trying to make, I don't know. It's an uphill battle for sure.
When you look back in history, at what point did we start turning to, at what point did we make a turn to focus on environmental problems, issues? When was like the first thing that you ever could recount of us trying to make a positive change?
I feel like probably not until probably like right around the Vietnam War, like Agent Orange and stuff.
Yeah.
Where we were like, wait a second. Oh, we're like killing a bunch of people with this. Like, yeah, there's positives, and I don't think it really blew up until the 90s at the earliest.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I just don't see it being it's not in high demand. Like, unlike, you know, fancy new pans. Like, those are in high demand. Moisture wicking workout clothes. People want that. They don't want to be told everything is killing you. It's a lot easier to just kind of pretend like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, definitely. But for somebody like you, it exists very much, and you probably drive yourself crazy thinking about it all the time.
I feel like I've become almost a little numb to it.
Yeah. How do you go through life knowing that you're just killing yourself on a daily basis, and everybody around you is killing themselves, and they don't even know?
I don't know how to explain how I do it.
You're just like, it is what it is at this point.
Like especially because like I work with very concentrated standards. I essentially I have a lot more exposure than an everyday person. That in itself is, I mean, I've just kind of accepted. I'm like, okay, like I get to kind of do something nice for the world and like test for these contaminants, but there's a negative side, which is I'm getting a lot more exposure to it.
So what does your job consist of? You obviously work in a lab.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? What is your daily routine in the lab?
Oh man, I wish I had a daily routine.
I would like to know like what you do in the lab.
So we get our samples in, and it obviously depends on what kind we're working with. And our group preps them ourselves. Almost no one else in the building does a lot of their own prep. but it definitely is beneficial for us to see the whole thing from start to finish. We supplement these samples with a way to kind of like track what's going on inside of it. We call it an isotope dilution standard. Basically, it's the same compound, but it's has an isotope. So it has like, instead of a carbon with 12 protons or neutrons, I don't remember. It has a carbon with 13.
Okay.
And so you're able to tell that difference. That will react very similarly to whatever you're doing to the sample as the target compound. So if the target compound is getting caught on a filter, it doesn't want to filter all the way through. So is that isotope. And so you can kind of say, okay, well, we only got 50% of our isotope, which means you're probably only getting 50% of the target compound. So you can kind of back calculate and say, okay, we think there's about X amount in the sample. So we add that, we process it in order to, most of the time it's like extracting it into some sort of methanol because it prefers water over methanol. And so getting it to be into methanol is part of the whole process. And we put it into a little vial, put it on our instrument, which is a liquid chromatography mass spectrometer. You know, like in all the crime shows, they're like, our GCMS. It's kind of similar. We have GCMSs at work, but we use an LCMS. And it does its magic and finds, it can basically count how much of these compounds are in it and lets us know. And we work that data up against our like calibration curve, send that data to the client. So that's an average day. That doesn't happen very often.
How long does it take to do a sample?
Depends on what kind. So we have a couple different options. We have just like plain old soil. That can take about 4 hours to get it prepped and running onto the instrument.
Wow.
The waters take about 2 hours. If it's like a wastewater. We also have another water option that can see a lot lower. So like wastewater option is like 10 parts per trillion is the lowest we can tell. This other way concentrates it down a lot more. We can see down to 1 part per trillion. Wow. The EPA regulates at 70 parts per trillion. So there's that. And then we also have our drinking water, which is so difficult to do. I hate working on it. That's my least favorite test to do. And because it's very specific, you have to be totally exact or else your data isn't going to work. And that takes almost all day.
Wow.
Which is, again, why I don't, because you have to sit there and be so careful.
What's the worst thing you've seen in drinking water?
In drinking water, it's not, I'd say maybe like 5 or 6 part per trillion. I don't think I've seen much more than that. We've definitely never done a dilution on it, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
We also, a lot of times we get activated carbon and we process that as a soil. We've done 1,000x dilutions on that. It is in the parts per million.
Wow.
It's so much.
Wow.
And it seems like 1 part per trillion is roughly a drop into an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Whoa.
It seems like a small amount, but then you kind of consider, okay, this is so many parts per trillion in 1 glass of drinking water. I drink so many glasses.
Yeah.
And like in the rainwater that they collected, it was 100 to 400 parts per trillion.
Whoa.
And so, don't drink your rainwater.
Wow. Is there a way to filter that out though?
Again, just in activated carbon. So like your Brita filters and your zero waters, use those. Please use those.
Do they work?
They do. There was the Wolverine shoe plant up in, I don't remember. It's in Michigan.
Yeah.
They ended up polluting the water around them with PFAS, and they had to send giant tanks of granulated carbon out to the residents in order to clean their water, and they test that water every single week.
Whoa. In
order to basically make up for their mistake. They're like, well, we polluted all this water, so now we have to put all this money into fixing and it's still not even a fix. It's
just maintaining.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, we can do this to prevent you from getting too sick.
Whoa.
Yeah. John Oliver did a bit about PFAS. A lot of like my information that I have learned throughout time has been like from that, as well as like the Dark Waters movie, and also just my own research. So I just wanted to like let people know that I have gotten information from other sources, and that those are some good sources to go check out.
Okay. Awesome.
And he puts it in a fun way. It still is a call to action.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, it's a lot more fun than this depressing, we're all going to die of cancer.
Well, I mean, we could literally die from anything. So
exactly.
We could die in a car accident. We could die by anything, literally anything. So to focus on just this one thing that, I'm going to die from this, I need to not wear clothes or something. I don't know, just to focus on that, and that you're going to die from that. I mean, you literally could die from anything. So,
and I think that's part of like how I deal with the idea is like, there's so many things that this one thing I'm not too worried about. Like I am, but also, like I said, I'm like numb to all of the things that are actively killing me.
Right. Yeah, there's so many things that we're all like ingesting and taking in that could kill us. Yeah. Now, if somebody from, I don't know, Congress or some sort of politician heard this, what would you tell them?
Probably something along the lines of, I know you guys are working on it, but please, for the sake of like all of your constituents, like keep pushing it. Obviously there's a lot that comes across your desk every single day, but like please keep in mind that like PFAS is like, please go back to it. Don't let it just be in your stack of papers on your desk. Like it's there at least, but and they're working on it slowly and surely. I want to kind of Representative Dan Kildee and Debbie Dingell, I don't know. They are both from Michigan, and they both have introduced PFAS actions into Congress, and so props on them. Whoever voted for them, good job. They're doing a good job. And there's a bunch more that have been happening in Congress, and so it's just like, please keep at it.
Yeah, I don't even know who those people are. I know I didn't vote for them. But I just think there's so much to pay attention to, like, I mean, you work in that realm, so you pay attention to all that stuff. But like for somebody like me, like I don't pay attention to that because there's so many different things, so many different aspects of politics to pay attention to. Yeah. It's so difficult. But I think that, I don't know. I think to put the responsibility on politicians to manage these things is kind of a far reach. Like we should not be doing that. I don't think. Like,
yeah, ideally, I think
especially because especially because they accept money from all these different companies. Like they're
Yeah.
backed by these, so they have like a reason to not push something or.
Yeah, I can't imagine a world where people are like, or individual people are boycotting these companies enough to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess, you could try and appeal to their sense of like the sense of humanity of these like CEOs of DuPont and 3M and everything, and be like, I understand you're making money, good for you, but what if it was your kids? What if it was your family?
Well, I mean, essentially, it is affecting their kids and their families. Like, everybody
and
wears
yet they're
clothes.
still making. I don't know. It's just I don't understand how they don't care. And I don't
Do they
know.
understand the impacts of it?
I don't know.
I mean, because I'm sure they do, right? You would think they would be aware of the environmental effects.
Maybe. I feel like they probably, at least, I don't know how far to the top it goes. Like, I could see, the president and the CEO just being like, delegating and just do whatever. But then there are, like, managers and stuff who are, like, telling, other companies, don't put this in the waterways no matter what you do.
Right.
But I don't know if that message came from, the president.
Right.
So I don't know. And like most CEOs of companies aren't scientists.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain it to people in a way that they're going to understand the gravity of the situation. If, they have little chemistry knowledge, which is part of why I wanted to come on here and, try my best to explain it.
Yeah, no, I think you explained it pretty well for an idiot like myself. I understood most of it. So, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. Yeah, because I was like, I want to have I want to have scientists on. I want to have everybody on, and anybody who has something interesting to talk about. But I'm really glad that you reached out and came on to talk about the pollution.
Yeah, and I think more people need to know about it, and there's obviously, like what I've been able to tell you today, there's obviously so much more.
Yeah.
So many more nuances than I could even try to explain over a podcast.
Yeah. We would have to have like 5 hours.
Yeah. And like it would have to be like a whole video of like me writing on a whiteboard and I'm
We could do that.
and like I only have a bachelor's. Like there's so many more people out there who have so much more knowledge about this than even I do.
Yeah.
So
but nobody understands when they talk.
It's like you got to find a middle ground of like, okay, I know all this information. How do I
relay it? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is again like why I'm recommending, that movie Dark Waters and John Oliver's bit, because they do both of those they explain it in a really good way. So
John Oliver's bit. Is that where can that be found?
Honestly, I think I just Googled John Oliver PFAS.
We are Googling for the people who are just listening.
Yeah. So I just Googled John Oliver PFAS. It's a 20-minute video on YouTube. Last week tonight with John Oliver.
Last week tonight is what it's called?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I got it. I'm going to watch that.
So I hope you enjoy it.
I do. I'm sure I will. Yeah. I'll probably go down a rabbit hole. Thanks a lot.
There is another link. It's ewg.org/PFAS map. And it highlights basically all the known areas where there's like significant PFAS contamination. Michigan is lit up.
Really?
Yeah, we have a lot of PFAS contamination in this state.
Why?
I think we have a lot of manufacturers of it.
Mm.
I know Wolverine was manufacturing it just for like their shoes. And I know of, there's got to be more. I know that there are more. I can't think of what they are off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of manufacturers of it. Like I said, Michigan government and Eagle, the environmental agency of Michigan, we are also one of the best states. Like, we have one of the best responses to PFAS. So there is that.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Because I think they understand that it is such an issue.
Yeah.
So
what was the website again? EWG PFAS?
EWG.org.
Oh, .org.
/PFAS map.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
What else do you have written down? We have 5 minutes. We can go for 5 more minutes. We've only gone for 55 minutes. And you ended this podcast on doom.
Oh, see. I feel like I ended the podcast on doom. It's all of it is doom. Yeah, the positives that I had was that the government is taking it seriously.
Yeah.
That's a positive. There's some remediation that is able to be done. Not all hope has been lost.
Yeah. Is there anything that you actively try to avoid that would have PFAS in it?
I think I don't, just because I have so much exposure anyway.
Yeah.
I would say my recommendation in order to reduce your exposure, filter your water.
Get rid of your couch. Stand.
Get rid of your carpet. Get rid of your couch. Get rid of all your clothes. No.
Don't have a bed.
Don't ever eat anything. All good things. No.
Yeah. All that works.
Yeah. Just like be mindful of it and be aware. Just like, I think knowing that your, fire or not, we don't all have fire resistant clothing. Your waterproof clothing is like that has it. And, it's not just like really scratching off. Again, like the thing with the pans was, just don't overheat it. Don't scratch it.
Mm.
And so I feel like that's kind of similar in your clothes. Is like, it's such, because you're not, setting them on fire or like really, really breaking like that coating that's on these fibers. Like I said, it's all low. It's just the bioaccumulation that is, it's not leaving our bodies. And if it is, it's very, very slow. And I think there's some scientist that's like, it does break down into hydrofluoric acid in our bodies. So, if you want hydrofluoric acid in your body,
wow.
It's like, okay, cool.
That doesn't sound good.
No. Yeah. He references it in John Oliver's thing. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to mention?
Not that I can think of at the moment.
You're going to leave here and be like, I should have said that.
Probably. But no, I really appreciate being able to share what I know of PFAS.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not everything, but it's probably more than most people. And so I really like being able to share what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps bring some awareness to it, because I honestly didn't know anything about it. And I didn't even know that there was a company just up the street testing for this. So
There's Fibertec in Holt, and then there's Merit Laboratories in East Lansing,
okay,
and obviously the state lab.
okay.
but
And you work for Fibertec.
Sure do.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for doing this. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.